Hi there. I am so excited to get this opportunity to share the work we've been doing here at Eye to Eye and share a little bit about our innovation work. Thank you so much, New Profit, for this chance to learn from this community and to be a part of this community. It's been an incredible place for us to grow and to continue to grow. I want to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. My name is David Flink, and I am the Chief Empowerment Officer here at Eye to Eye. I've been doing this work for 20 years, and almost to the date, 20 years ago, I went to Brown University as a freshman. And as someone with dyslexia and ADD, I thought I had a responsibility and an opportunity to go and meet some young people who had learning and attention issues like I did, and to see if I could be a mentor to them. And so I found some friends. Here we are. This was the first group of Eye to Eye mentors. Everyone in this picture either had dyslexia or ADD or some kind of learning attention issue, and we all went and found some middle schoolers to hang out with and to tell them our stories and to help give them hope and a blueprint for the future. I'm not quite sure why this picture is in black and white, and I'm pretty sure they had color back then, but anyhow, fast forward, this was a recent gathering of our chapter leaders. One thing to point out, in the first picture, those were just our mentors. In this picture, every one of these students is a chapter leader, meaning behind each of these students is another 10 to 20 mentors. So we are now working in 170 schools in 20 some odd states across the country. And we're very excited about the work we do. We know we're making an impact in the lives of kids, but we are not satisfied because we haven't reached all students out there in need. And so part of my presentation today is talking to you about how we're aiming to get a line of sight to that chance. But first I want to ground y'all in sort of why we do this work and kind of what's at stake. So there are about 2.4 million students in our public school system that are diagnosed with LD ADHD. LD ADHD just means learning disability or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Right now in our school system, the consequences for these students in not getting what they need is pretty bleak. And so there's an 85% chance that you'll be held back or retained if you have a learning or attention issue. 50% are more likely to be suspended. There's a 50% less likely to attend a four-year college if you have a learning or attention issue. And the statistic that troubles me the most, 55% are involved in the criminal justice system within 8 years of leaving school. So needless to say, by not effectively figuring out a way to serve these students, there's huge cost for all of us. At Eye to Eye, we've been looking at how to not just obviously make these kids see a line of sight to their future, but really to work very diligently in best practices and research to ensure that we can reverse these statistics. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more of the history of that, but just to give you sort of a snapshot of what the support of organizations like Eye to Eye are able to do. And this is directly from our research. After being involved in Eye to Eye, there's a 73% of our students find that their mentor helped them learn how to advocate for themselves. So they know how to ask for what they need in school. 87% reported that their mentor helped them think about their future positively. And 87% reported that being a part of Eye to Eye got them to think about what they're good at. So these are just a couple of things that when these results occur, we were able to literally turn around some of these very devastating and heartbreaking statistics that you see on the left. So why do we do this work? I want to just give you a little bit of a history of our theory of change. We started with a direct service model, one-to-one in a group setting. What we realized is by helping students feel empowered, and they get agency, community, and support to make their learning environments work for them, these statistics that I just showed you a minute ago are made possible. In addition, we've realized that we needed a model that reaches one to hundreds. So we have a whole series of community engagement activities where we can reach 100 students by coming in for a shorter period of time, but with deeper impact. I won't go into a ton of detail about what that looks like today, but just imagine a student speaker who shares in an assembly what their story is like and has that impact on that entire community. That's the kind of work that we do. We also have technology interventions like an app where a student can go through our entire curriculum on their own. And then lastly, we have culture campaigns. This is where, by sharing our experience we're able to reach millions. And we've done everything from PSAs at the Indy 500 to Times Square billboards. And what we realize is half the battle is perception. And so by leveraging those who've had the lived experience and giving them a megaphone, we can dramatically change the way that young people see themselves. And to be frank, what parents and teachers believe is possible for them as well. And all that leads to young people having the agency and community that they need, and awareness, understanding, and really celebration of those who learn differently, and the policies and practices can change so that we can identify people more quickly, put in appropriate accommodations more quickly, and that ultimately the experience of the student is that they can ask for what they need, and the teacher or the community can respond in kind and say, I know what to do with that. Specific to Eye2Eye, what we realize is that the work of our outreach and our culture change has created a huge demand for our direct service model. So we think about, while we've done research on 2 and 3 in terms of impact, what we realize is that really has created a huge amount of demand for the supply of our direct service model. So we're really focusing a lot on how can we scale our direct service model, and that's going to be the focal point of the last 10 or so minutes of our presentation. But I want to come back to that first slide. If you remember, we were talking about some of the impact that our mentors had on their mentees, and why do we do that? Well, social emotional learning, which is probably something that many of you have heard of, is super, super important for students with learning disabilities today. So students with LDs today have less growth mindset, feel less connected to peers, report more feelings of depression, and all of this leads to a cycle of failure. And you can go all the way back to 1999 to find research that says that if we increase the social emotional learning outcomes and life outcomes for kids with learning and attention issues, it'll help them succeed in school and succeed in life. And so we realize there's a great need for programs that promote social emotional learning competencies in students with LD ADHD, and that's exactly what Eye2Eye does. And while we've been doing the kind of mentoring that I described at the beginning for over 20 years, we really dug deep in this past couple of years with a partnership at the UCSF Brain Lens Lab, and we asked them to unpack our work with a lens towards social emotional learning, understanding that that was the predictor of success for kids with learning and attention issues. And this study just came out. These are just a couple of the results that I wanted to share with you. So starting with how comfortable are they with their learning disability? What we found is that students in Eye2Eye, oh, you can't even, I realized you probably couldn't even see, I had to go back for a minute because I pushed my button too quickly. Students in Eye2Eye felt incredibly comfortable with their learning disability in relation to students who had learning differences but weren't in Eye2Eye. And for those of you who maybe know, when you see 3 stars, that's highly statistically significant. So that's a huge indicator for why we've been able to be successful in our work. In addition, we've looked at connectedness, right? So do you feel like you have a community? Students in Eye2Eye had an increase in that feeling. Students who had learning differences but weren't in Eye2Eye felt incredibly disconnected. And by the way, NLD is students without learning disabilities. Those students also felt fairly disconnected. That's a huge problem in order to feel like you're showing up to school and you're prepared to succeed. And then just a couple more statistics. This one around mental health feels really important, especially now we're talking about young people's mental health all the time. What you'll find is students without learning disabilities, and this is specifically talking about middle school students, there wasn't a huge change in depression, but for Eye2Eye students, we found that being in Eye2Eye was actually protective in becoming depressed, whereas students with learning disabilities actually had a much increase in depression, which obviously relates back to community. So in some ways, you can see a correlation between school and depression for students with learning disabilities if they do not have some version of an Eye2Eye mentor. I think this is getting close to the last slide. Why is that the case? Well, self-esteem. Self-esteem and depression are highly linked. So students with learning disabilities, their self-esteem tends to go down in middle school. Students in Eye2Eye who have learning disabilities, their self-esteem goes up, and even goes up more than students who don't have learning disabilities. So this, for me, is it's a demand that we grow. like we have a model that works, and it is a moral responsibility to grow and to think about how to do this as effectively and efficiently as possible. So we set out to do just that. In terms of our direct service work, which is the mentoring work that we've mostly been talking about, by 2021, we're going to triple the number of students we serve and school sites that we work in. And in terms of our outreach and community engagement, we're going to do 10 times the amount of work we're currently doing. So we're going to continue to increase our demand and continue to increase the supply for our students. And obviously this is ambitious. Culture change work remains ever present as well in terms of supporting changing hearts and minds, but to do this in a way that's efficient, it's required us to do what we think of as being obsessed with the problem, not the solution. So the problem that we're in love with is this problem of not reaching all students. And so we've become obsessed. And as a result, we're focusing on these three things right now. So number one is we're building a culture of innovation. What does that mean? We know from the research at UCSF, the secret sauce of having a mentor who's had your same lived LD experience is really important. And we also know that our curriculum is really important, but we're innovating in every other way. So where we do this work, whether it needs to be one-to-one, these are things that we're rapid prototyping right now to find out, can we reach more students more quickly? In addition, achieving sustainability through earned income. I think probably a lot of folks are familiar with the importance of fee-for-service work. For us, it's not just sustainability of our organization, because to be honest, none of us here are interested in the creating of a statue of eye to eye. We would be happy if and when eye to eye is no longer necessary because we have solved the problem. And so to do that, what we realize is not only do we need fee-for-service to grow our organization, but most importantly, if schools pay for this work, then it matters to them. And if they don't, they're saying that it doesn't matter to them. So we have earmarked a quarter of our budget currently, and we're going up from there to receive revenue from fee-for-service. And lastly, broadening our coalition of supporters. And I suspect that might be some of you on the other end of the screen. And what I mean is for probably the past 20 years, someone made a choice to include eye to eye in their lives. That might be a donor, that might be a parent, that might be a teacher, and almost always that was somebody who was directly touched by the experience of having dyslexia or ADD. What we realize is that's about 1 in 5 people, but we need a 4 in 5 strategy too. If we can't figure out how to make it so that every single person realizes the value of those who learn and think differently and pushes for making change with us, then we have a problem. And so we're really working very hard to help explain this experience, to help explain the opportunity that's ahead, whether it be, probably the computer that you're viewing this on being invented by somebody like Steve Jobs, who was dyslexic, or that you love Whoopi Goldberg and want that creative person to continue to create content and levity in your life who's dyslexic. So thinking a lot about the opportunity of bringing everyone along. And why is that the case? Well, I want to bring this back to my own personal journey. As I mentioned, 20 years ago, I was a college student, starting just as a mentor, and fast forward, I'm now the proud father of 2. And this is my daughter. Her name is Emma. I don't know if she's dyslexic or not. I'm kind of pulling for dyslexia because I know some of the great potential of dyslexic thinkers. But either way, I want to share that she just started school. She just started school literally a couple of weeks ago. And this is literally the day before school. I just want to share this quick video and let you see how she thought about going to school. For those of you who don't speak toddler, she is saying, I'm going to school. She's pretty excited about it. I'm going to So Emma, are you happy about going to school? Yeah. And I wanted to share this video with you, not just because, like all parents, I happen to think my daughter is very cute, but honestly, this should be the experience that every student has, no matter how you learn, across America and across the world, frankly. And this is how we all begin. And there's something that happens over time where sadly we take this away from students, and we do not have to do that. And so where we're looking ahead and where we want your help is in thinking about how can we ensure that every student is able to advocate for how they learn best, and every teacher's response is, I'm willing and able to provide that for you. How do we get to what we know is working to reach more kids? How do we stay focused on scaling a model that works, investing in innovation, and looking around the curve? And how to push this research that I've shared with you out to the public. I invite you to join this journey with us. I hope you will reach out to us at i2i and do this with us. We need your help. We can't do it alone. And I think, not just this coalition of students that you see in front of you that I know I work for every day that can make the change that we need, but honestly, it is every one of us. We all know somebody, if we ask, who learns and thinks differently, whether they have the label or not. And in my belief, it is merely a matter of unlocking that potential. So thank you for the time. Thank you for this opportunity. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you.